From the Joy News Center. This is News at 8.
Welcome to the Primetime News Bulletin. You're on Joy News on Multi TV. Coming up, government announces the removal of controversial taxes on condoms, agricultural inputs, and mobile phones with effect from January 2014, and a pay cut for the president and his officials in the 2014 budget. For government, the budget is transformational, but the minority says it's uninspiring. We'll tell you some of the things in the budget that should excite you. In other news that should excite you even more, the Black Stars have confirmed their booking for the 2014 World Cup in Brazil despite a 2-1 loss to Egypt. Western Naval Command busts foreign vessel with substances suspected to be cocaine. And on the occasion of World Toilet Day, the AMA is cautioning landlords it is against the law to deprive their tenants a proper place of convenience. We also have showbiz and international news coming up in the next 60 minutes.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
The 2014 budget has allocated 136 million Ghana cedis to modernize agriculture in an effort to ensure food security. According to the finance minister, the sector between 2014 and 2016 will also receive special attention as a priority area.
According to the budget presented before Parliament, approximately 4.6 million cedis from the annual budget funding amount has already been spent on agriculture modernization from January to September 2013. In the 2014 budget, the Food Security and Emergency Preparation Program to be rolled out will also make provision for national strategic stock for emergencies, as well as establish food insecurity early warning systems. Minister of Finance Seth Tekpe indicated some irrigation projects which were mentioned in the 2013 budget were still ongoing.
The Minister of Food and Agriculture, through the Ghana Irrigation Authority, continued with the construction and rehabilitation works on the following irrigation schemes: Dawa, Ave Afeniba, Tono Phase 2, Akomadan, Dawenya, Zoedam, Tangasa, and Kore irrigation projects. When completed, a total of 640 hectares of irrigation land will be available for cultivation. In 2014, government will partner the private sector to continue the rehabilitation of existing irrigation schemes to promote all year-round farming. Also, to address post-harvest challenges and promote agribusiness, the 2014 budget has provided for the construction of 2 modern markets in the Bronx, Ahafo, and northern regions. Farmers are also to enjoy credit to expand their farms as government plans to scale up insurance for the sector. The Ministry of Agri will pursue the development of modern farmers markets, development of agricultural estates, and the scaling up of the agricultural insurance scheme. The government's assistance of other stakeholders with the commercial agricultural insurance system was established in 2011 on a pilot basis, and this is a scheme that will be expanded.
Though the 2014 budget did not touch on agriculture mechanization, which the previous budget indicated was going to provide 1,000 tractors, 100 maize planters, 10 maize harvesters, and several other machinery for the benefit of farmers, the Deputy Minister for Agriculture, Dr. Ahmed Yakubu Al-Hassan, said it will become a reality soon.
Those items were to come from a Brazilian facility. And as I speak to you, the Minister for Agriculture just came back from Brazil last week to finalize arrangement for those items to be coming to the country. So there's nothing really particularly exciting about coming here to repeat again that, oh, we are going to do this when.
So it's coming.
Absolutely.
The sector, according to government, is recording growth despite the many challenges, including lack of good planting materials and post-harvest losses.
Now, we'll be coming back to a lot more on the highlights of the 2014 budget. But the annual ritual of budget presentations has long evolved from the days when new prices of key items will be announced. And for which reason, most people, traders, businessmen, economists, and Ghanaians from all walks of life will typically be glued to their sets to follow. That is either no longer the case. And as Joy News Stockers Ankuma found out, the proliferation of radio stations and media houses offering a variety of choices has further whittled down the public's interest in the finance minister's domination of the airwaves.
For the 3 hours or so that the finance minister will be setting out government's economic plans for 2012, that's between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., most Ghanaians would find themselves going about their businesses or what earns them a living. Those employed in white-collar jobs and who will be in a position to appreciate the economic terms and percentages would typically find themselves in office settings that may not allow them to fully follow. Thanks to social media, however, they are able to catch some highlight. The self-employed and those in the informal sector who could follow without any inhibitions, however, say they have other things on their mind.
I mini bibi a make one. Now, maybe I did have been an say. Say, yes, you can edit on your mano. And for so be a niso. Be a 6 cities. Na 5 cities. And for so be any so. It's yes, Roma say. And Kabaja Romo ya omanya bibia. A beman to Boisier, Abaka crap.
Others also say they just don't get it.
Media mintie. Because me tia cry sister, omo brofo no omo beka na menti ase me ne me penny action say sika no me hu say ampa sika yi ene omo ye brofo yi dia epe ene togo dia epe na fe me hu say ampa bibi koso na me tia cry sister me tie ne kwa.
Others yet don't quite have an opinion.
School fees and that
for most of these, there is something far more interesting on TV and radio. Not all the people in the informal sector, though, are as interested in the budget. And apparently, they had some ideas as well that could be helpful for any finance minister. The station master at Tudu in the Central Business District of Accra, for instance, talks about plug-in leakages.
My main concern is the way they mobilize revenue and its management. Because if you don't do prudent management, you get all the resources, but at the end of the day, you see that you cannot do anything. So I'm expecting that they put in measures, the way they spend the money, manage the judiciary, check leakages, and especially ghost names on register.
This phone dealer also talks about a people-centered budget.
Well, I just switch on my television set, so I'm not coming to listen to the budget. Whatever they wanted to get, it should favor the people of Ghana. That's what we all want. Everything that will be saying, it should be a favor to us.
Whilst this young trader believes education is the key.
My expectation is for the education. The standard of education is very low, so I think if the minister is going to read the budget, he should support on the education, and the business is also not moving, so I'm also expecting that he should be inside the business.
So now you know. They may not be able to quote the economic terms like the economists do, but they have some good ideas and know what they want. Most importantly, though, they hold the key of boosting the finance minister's region.
In fact, it means the finance minister should be listening to what they are saying. Now, for most people, as you heard in the story they just rolled, the budget is uninteresting, and so they would rather do other things than follow its presentation. There are, however, some takeaways the ordinary Ghanaian can readily relate to. In the studio now to highlight some of these takeaways is financial consultant Sydney Kesley-Hayford. Good evening to you, Sydney.
Good evening, Israel.
Okay, so the usual highlights, such as economic growth and fiscal deficit, that tend to matter to economists and the rest. But I'd like you to highlight those ones briefly.
Okay, very briefly, which is what is lost on the general populace because they can't seem to grasp the whole idea. Well, we have ended the year. We've used 9 months of data to record and project into for the rest of the year. So at this point, we are pretty far below budget targets. Government is showing that we are down by a deficit of about 5.6 billion. It might grow or it might narrow. But according to their projections, they expect to narrow the gap in revenue.
But in fact, they're not going to meet the target.
They won't meet the target. It's clear that they will not meet the target because we plan to make 22.5 billion. And we've only at this point, as at the end of September, we've got about 13.8 billion. So the rest of the year is their catch-up point. I don't think it's going to happen. So that we will not meet. The inflation targets we've missed already because inflation is currently at about 13%. Government expected to end the year with inflation between 8.5% and 9%. So it didn't happen. The number of days in which we have export cover has also not been met. We expected to have at least 4 months, and we're doing something like about 3.5, 3.5, 3.8 months. So we're clearly off target on that as well. Then our expectations are that GDP would have grown beyond the 8% that we are actually looking at now. And we are yet to see exactly what those numbers are because we can have a point number today. In the next few months, we'll see where that is as we go forward. So all in all, none of the targets for 2013, the fiscal targets for 2013, have actually been achieved. So we don't know what
Would you say it's one of those things that makes people uninterested in the budget because it appears as if we put out the figures, we put out the projections, at the end of the day, we tend not to meet them? Well,
I think there are two things here. The first one is, let me get biblical. We render to Caesar and we render to the Lord. In essence, there are people who have use for particular indicators, both those of us who are trying to do high education level analysis, and then the donor community who really also need this, and the international community who want to understand and compare. So that's the one side of it. The other side of it, of course, is that for the simple reason that the budget is read, and at the end of the day, this particular budget, we had no comparisons as to what we said we were going to do in 2013 and what we actually achieved. Normally, the budget is structured in such a way that the government comes in and tells us about all the things that they achieved. Maybe it will be in the longer piece when they do the detailed budget reading, which I haven't had a chance to go through yet. But I didn't hear anything about the number of boreholes we said we were going to drill and did we do them. The number of guinea fowl we said we were going to rear and did we do them. The number of fingerlings of tilapia we said we would create and we did do them. All those things were lost in this particular session. Yes. So we'll look at it later and see whether those come up. Okay. But yes, we are getting disinterested because at the end of the day, we don't really know whether this is a budget for a government or whether it's a budget for the people.
Okay, but there are definitely some things that will be of interest to people. For instance, if government says that from January 2014, we're no longer going to have the taxes on condoms and the rest, those things should excite people.
Yes, and that was a pleasant surprise. So if the people didn't hear that at all, if they didn't hear that, we should now let them understand that from now on, the taxes that were slapped onto mobile phones as a panic measure, sorry, excuse me, I should say, a panic measure by government earlier on in the middle of the year when they were desperately trying to look for where they could raise cash, have now been reversed. So mobile phones should now go back to the original. Now let's be very, very clear here. Government hasn't given us anything back. We already had it. They took it away, and now we are back to where we were. Yeah. So there's no concession in this one. Essentially, we had mobile phones going at, say, 200 cedis. You slap 25% on top of it. Now you say, okay, I'm no longer slapping the interest on it. I'm giving it back to you. You haven't given me anything. I'm back where I was again.
Especially when we have VAT going up.
Especially when we have VAT going up. So really, what we have, the net effect is only now that we have an additional 2.5% of VAT, which we have to pay. So that's the one. All right, pleasant. We don't have to pay taxes on condoms anymore. Sex has suddenly become cheaper. When it was getting expensive, now it's become cheaper. So hopefully we won't see a population boom again because people, those who were wondering about how they were going to pay for their condoms, can now go back to investing in condoms. So that's okay as well. Farming-wise, we know that that particular tax on machetes has also been rolled back. We know that the stabilization levy has been rolled back 6 months. Okay. So that should also help corporates and help small businesses. We also know that we are getting away from some of the import levies which we had, which are also being tailored. So in selected areas, government is actually trying to do something and say, listen, all of this that is a burden on you personally and individually, we're giving all that back, but instead we are going to tax you 2.5% VAT, which everybody should pay, rather than select persons being levied with taxes. Yeah. So there are some pockets of interest there. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Those financial consultants, Sydney, Casely, Hayford. But we're still staying with the budget and the presentation of the 2014 budget and financial policy statement of government by Finance Minister Tekbe was not without the usual heckling from the minority side. For them, the budget failed to comprehensively address the issue of corruption that's been widely reported in the media in recent times.
The public gallery, for one, unusually had several empty seats, which meant that one didn't have to worry about losing their seats. Also significantly missing from the public gallery this year, as compared to previous years, were representatives from the business community. A brief delay by the finance minister after he was invited by the speaker caused a bit of stir amongst especially the minority MPs. His arrival shortly after with his leather briefcase settled the majority members of the House. The minority, however, made sure they disrupted his presentation as often as they could, especially when the matter of corruption came up. Upon the conclusion of his presentation, however, the MPs broke out into songs, with the two sides trying to outdo the other. For the minority, the budget was one of hardship, even though their colleagues on the other side disagreed.
14 taxes going to be rolled out in 2014. You contract the purchasing power of Ghanaians, right? The purchasing power of Ghanaians is going to further contract. If you contract the purchasing power of Ghanaians, it's going to affect production, industry, agriculture, and so on. The standard of living of the Ghanaians is going to go down. And if it affects production, it will affect employment.
Actually, I thought this is time that we should pump a lot of money into capital expenditure for the economy to pick up. I was a little impressed when I got to know that the industry has grown by 91% and the agric has grown, marginal growth from 1.2% to 3.2%, which means we are making up. But when I saw the allocation about just 5.6 million being sent to capital expenditure, which means that more than 95% or almost all the revenue is going to consumption and pay off areas, I was a little not happy.
The President, John Mahama, his vice, ministers of state and all appointees will from 2014 take a voluntary 10% pay cut in an effort to bring down the country's wage bill, the biggest single expenditure item. Government in the budget has also announced an initiative to tackle the infrastructure deficit.
The gesture announced by the finance minister, said Tekbe, in his presentation of the 2014 budget, is to demonstrate leadership as part of the several efforts to control the ballooning wage bill.
Leadership in the spirit of the partnership from whom His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, his vice presidents, ministers and appointees have decided to take a voluntary 10% pay cut for 2014. The amount, Mr. Speaker, the amount to be honourable members, I hope you respect the chair. Honourable members, I hope you respect the chair. Mr. Speaker, the amount to be deducted by the Comptroller and Accountant General will be paid into a fund to be dedicated to a special purpose chip compound to focus on maternal and neonatal health.
He detailed how the infrastructure fund will be resourced.
The entire amount from the 2.5% VAT will be dedicated to our ongoing infrastructure and development drive. Under the proposed infrastructure fund to be discussed later.
The 2014 budget, which has been tagged as transformational budget by the finance minister, also highlights policies that will create jobs and expand the economy.
Meanwhile, in health, 5 new polyclinics in the Greater Accra region and the construction of a new National Blood Transfusion Center are part of the many projects government is seeking to undertake in the 2014 budget. Finance Minister said Tekwe also indicated government will continue the implementation of some projects that were initiated in the 2013 budget. Notable among the 2013 projects is the construction of 5 polyclinics in the Brong-Ahafo region, which officials say is about 65% complete.
The 2013 budget stated, among others, that it would strengthen governance and improve the efficiency of the country's health system and also bridge the gap in access to healthcare delivery between the urban and rural centers. But many of these interventions are still waiting to be fully implemented. In the 2014 budget, government says it will set aside 10% of the salaries of the president, vice president, ministerial employee, and other government appointees to oversee the construction of several CHIP centers across the country to improve healthcare delivery. Import duties on HIV/AIDS drugs, as well as boosting maternal and neonatal healthcare, are some interventions the 2014 budget is seeking to carry out. Health expert Professor Bedu Akosa has lauded the initiative by government and called for a total rollout of the CHIPS program to create more access to healthcare delivery in rural communities.
Everywhere the CHIPS program has been properly rolled out, the improvements have been manifest. Why we cannot totally roll out so that all the 6,250 communities get the CHIPS program with the community health nurse appropriately resourced with a motorcycle so that she can do domiciliary visits, because she goes to homes. And when she goes to homes, she talks about nutrition for children. She even looks after children whilst they're at home. She looks after a pregnant woman. She does all the things that one would do in a clinic, but in a home setting. If you did that, the number of people who will be referred to health centers would decrease. The number of people who go to district hospitals would decrease. The number of people who go to regional hospitals would tremendously decrease. Why then do you have to spend so much money rehabilitating regional hospitals?
Professor Akosa also appealed to government to lay much emphasis on reducing maternal and neonatal mortality, which he indicated is retarding the country's progress in achieving goals 4 and 5 of the Millennium Development Goals.
We must work to ensure that maternal deaths are reduced. The processes are many. Most of the deaths is due to hemorrhage, and it means that the early warning systems are not there. Maternal nutrition, the nutritional status of the mother is fundamental. Any woman who is nutritionally sound, no matter how they bleed, they can survive. But if we have almost 59% of our pregnant women anemic, then the slightest bleed, they're gone.
He also called for framework to oversee the implementation of the mental health law to help solve the numerous mental challenges currently facing the nation.
In other news, a foreign registered vessel at Tia, Georgetown has been busted for carrying some items suspected to be cocaine. The seizure of the vessel, said to be from Guyana, was conducted by the Western Naval Command. 5 persons, all foreigners, were found on board. A helicopter was on hand to transport the sacks containing the items to Accra for further investigations. The authorities declined interviews for what they described as security reasons. Now, as the world marks World Toilets Day, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly wants landlords to be mindful of the law that makes it obligatory for them to provide places of convenience for their tenants. Most will take it for granted, but there are lots of people who have to visit public toilets whenever nature calls. Public Health Director Dr. Simpson Enimboating says the AMA is stepping up enforcement of the bylaw, adding that some landlords have already prosecuted for not having toilets in their homes.
Though there may not be very accurate statistics about the homes which don't have toilets, it is a well-known fact that for many residents in urban areas and even in rural communities use a toilet that's shared with other members of the community. It is the reason the provision of public toilets is an expenditure item on the budgets of many district assemblies and remains on the wish list of many communities. Director of the Public Health Department at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, Dr. Simpson Enimboating says access to toilets in the metropolis has seen tremendous improvement over the last 3 years. He, however, believes the occasion of World Toilet Day is a good time to make the public aware of the obligations of landlords.
It has worked very, very, very well. You know, when we started, many houses did not have toilet facilities. But now the good news is that many houses now have their own toilets. You know, when we started, close to about only 30% or so had toilets. Now the figure is 65 and over, and it is very encouraging. And the evidence is that, whereas we used to have cholera in those days, now we don't have it. It means that, you know, there is some improvement.
He adds that the AMA is also working with other partners to ensure that sanitation issues are properly managed in the metropolis.
We want to ensure that every house in the city gets its own toilet facility. And the PPP is polluter pays principle. We have divided the city into 10, sub-metros. Every sub-metro has been assigned with a waste management contractor who registered the residents, supply them with bins, and then collect their refuse. And we want every resident to sign on to that, because it is believed that if everybody is hooked onto that, principle, then chances are that nobody will now, dump their waste indiscriminately.
November 19th is set aside by the United Nations to change both behavior and policy on issues relating to sanitation. Matilda Wemega's report for Joy News.
All right, so the Black Stars secured a third successive berth at the World Cup. They're going to Brazil 2040, even though they lost to Egypt 2-1. It wasn't such an impressive performance, but the most important thing is that they qualified.
Yes, we qualified. I think plaudits all marks. You have to give full marks to Kwesi Appiah for doing what he had to do. I mean, his mandate was to qualify the team to Brazil 2014. That's been done. The rest is detail, but we want to pay a little bit of attention to how the team was drowned in. I understand that the circumstance wasn't what we're looking for. The atmosphere was, fiery. It was going to be very difficult for them. You saw the laces, throughout the whole game, and it was not very comfortable for the Stars. But we just have to understand that we would need to quickly improve there. And so right now you can see some of the goals and how everything happened. On the whole, they have done a good job by qualifying. But maybe we just have to look at other areas of the team, and I for one, getting worried with Fatal Dawda and his area ability. But
there are a number of things that we should be excited about. The performance of Fatal Dawda, for instance, I think he was.
He's coming up
for me.
I mean, yeah, and I think yes, he's coming up as well. Fatal Dawda is trying, and he's getting there. Impressive saves, yes. But again, we'll have to look at his area ability. It's one that we want to talk about. At least we have some 7 months to the World Cup, so we can put a lot of things together. And I'm sure the technical team of the Black Stars should be looking at this, trying to put the team back in the shape that we expect to see them. Remember that we are not only, playing these qualifiers, yes, but it's all about the World Cup. It's about meeting stronger positions. So let's try and put everything together again.
So
I think that's about the second goal. I mean, the goal. Down the laterals. The laterals is an area we have to work on, the right back.
And also the second goal came in.
That's right.
And I was wondering, what did that flair have to do with the goal? I mean, I'm thinking that probably, Fatal Dawda was distracted somewhere. Well, that was Ghana's goal, scored by Kevin Prince Boateng.
And what an important one. Everybody was talking about this. And these, some of the pundits said that Kevin will come into this game and score the goal. There was some sort of a campaign that was going on Kevin doesn't want to play for the team. He's not committing himself much to the team, but
he said he was committed.
And he came and he scored a goal. So I don't know if it's going to change all of a sudden, you know, how people feel towards this man, but that's it.
There are those who are saying that Kevin Prince Boateng came in and he scored an opportunistic goal because we had essentially qualified already on the first leg. After the first leg, we won 6-1.
Seriously, I don't buy that, because some players will come into the squad even though they haven't played they have not been a part of the qualifiers. The truth is, if you're ready, the coach thinks that you're in top form and he needs you, he'll definitely play you. Of course, the fans have been jubilating as well, you know. And we got out there, our cameras captured some of them. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I'm present because we have tried. We have tried to score them. They score, but I always say we have take one from them. So I'm happy, very happy.
You're happy with the scoreline?
Yes, I'm happy with the scoreline. Yeah.
Ghana no ni ya no. Ghana or killer diwo. Gidi. I'm a haswa. Sip tele or BG ame.
Yeah, we are down, but still we have fun. We are enjoying. Since we have qualified, we have no problem.
Right, so the fans are excited. I mean, we're all excited.
Everybody
and there are a number of things we should be excited about. I think one of the things has to do with the fact that we're having the first black, African, Ghanaian, local, indigenous coach.
Yes, right.
Coach,
No,
take us to the World Cup.
That's right.
I mean,
it's good. It's good for him. It's good for his confidence. And you look at the team. You have.
And we didn't have to pay him $1 million.
No, we didn't have to pay. We really didn't have to pay him. But I think that it's going to serve as a great motivation to our coaches out here. I'm sure you can definitely get to the heights. Christian has actually, is blazing the trail, and you can talk about that with Max Okunebu
and
as well.
There's some other qualifiers.
Yes, some other qualifiers. Let's first of all talk about Burkina Faso. We wanted them to qualify, so there's going to be an ECOWAS party at the World Cup, but they failed to do so because Algeria beat them by 1-0. We'll have the results on the screen right now, and then we can look at it, how it's looking like right now. There you have it. First of all, let's look at the African one, and that's what you can see right on your screen there. Algeria beat Burkina Faso by 1-0. The first leg was 3-2, so 2 away goals. They definitely, Algeria qualify into it. Now let's look at what's happening in Europe, and interesting stuff already. I want to talk about this, Israel. That game between France and Ukraine. Ukraine beat France in the first leg by 2-0. And there was a lot of talk about whether France could overturn that result. Here we have it already.
And they are.
Because if it's 2-0 now against Ukraine, then I just think we're going to see France back in it. A couple of issues with the sort of goals they're scoring. Remember that when they played with Ireland in the playoffs for the World Cup 2010, the same thing happened there. Now Sweden drawing goalless with Portugal. That's a Ronaldo versus Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Yeah.
Portugal have the edge because they won by 1-0 the first leg. We'll find out how that goes out. I was praying for Iceland to join the teams to the World Cup. It's not going to happen. Croatia leading by 2-0. They should be in the World Cup. Greece actually won the first game by 4-1, and it's currently 1-0 in Romania. So sadly, we know the teams that are going to the World Cup there.
At least we know we're going. We're waiting for the rest to join
Let's talk about this one as well, because we're continuing our build-up to Season 7 of the Joy Sports Invitational Tournament, scheduled for this Saturday. That's at the LWAC. We're just finding out. This time we're going to find out from ZipNet what they're doing. And I tell you, all the companies are getting themselves in great shape. Let's find out what ZipNet is doing.
As you know, we are debutants. So obviously we are not allowing ourselves to be intimidated. We think we have the men who can deliver the results for us. We have young men who probably, I'm sure, they've been training for quite a while, even before we registered.
Sending a warning to all the teams. ZipNet means our nets are zipped. So no ball is entering our post. But we are urging them to come along with baskets to carry some of the goals home.
If you are talking about ZipNet and combination, you haven't seen anything yet. We do a lot. You know, we do a lot. We do a lot of combinations. So for that one, don't worry.
Now these things are really bragging for this.
Let them brag, because you, number 9, myself, number 7, we should form. Yeah, you know that's. But this thing, you're doing it. That'll be over sports. My name is George Addy Jr. He'll join us for international news. Have a good night.
Sports was brought to you in association.
Well, apart from the Black Stars qualifying for the World Cup, the budget has been on top of issues today, and of course, Joy Business will be bringing you highlights. I'm Abigail Adumakwenchi. Now, straight away, taxes on mobile phones, condoms, and some agricultural inputs imposed earlier this year will no longer apply from January next year. Government is also to set up an SME fund next year to address the limited access to financing by SMEs and reduce their cost of borrowing. These were announced by the Finance Minister in the 2014 budget.
In line with the objective of maintaining a liberal tax regime, it is proposed that the following amendments should be considered and approved by the House. The National Fiscal Stabilization Levy, which is expected to end at the end of December 2014, will now terminate as of June 2014. The special import levy scheduled to end in June 2015 will now end at the close of 2014. Further, it is proposed that the following should be specifically exempted from the import levy with special import levy with immediate effect. Agriculture and fishing inputs such as canvases, outboard motors and fishing nets, medical supplies including condoms, educational materials, and energy bulbs that were exempted from import duty under the original customs tariff.
The Finance Minister said Tekwe, in delivering the budget for the 2014 financial year, described it as transformational, highlighting policies to consolidate Ghana's middle income status. Two key funds, the Ghana Infrastructure Fund and the SME Fund, to be introduced next year, according to the Minister, will spur economic growth. The newly introduced 2.5% VAT increment will be dedicated to the Infrastructure Fund and the National Health Insurance Levy, he explained. Government in the budget has projected total revenues and grants of 26 million Ghana cedis, representing 24.6% of GDP, with an 8.5% budget deficit. The 2014 budget targets an overall real GDP growth of 8%, an end-of-year inflation target of 9.5%, and gross international reserves of not less than 3 months of import cover of goods and services. Now away from the budget, work on the expansion of the Takoradi port to accommodate larger vessels and also to meet the growing demand for services at the port is progressing. A visit to the port by Joy News saw some changes at the port, with the construction of the breakwater already underway. Western Regional Correspondent William Benjamin Peters has filed this report for Joy News.
Since its construction in 1928, the Takoradi port is yet to witness any major expansion work. The recent oil discovery in the western region has exerted more pressure on activities at the port. Lack of space at the port also created congestion, with supply vessels competing for space with cargo vessels. The demand for space at the port by oil companies puts more pressure on existing facilities. The expansion works at the port, which started about 10 months ago, has so far seen transformation, with the government of Ghana, Viking Offshore, Halliburton and Goyle providing funding for projects including silos, which will provide marine diesel and base oil for oil rigs and supply vessels. A bulk storage facility, which includes marine liquid mud plants, will be used to treat potable water for the vessels, which have the capacity of producing about 1.5 million litres of potable water a day. Port authorities are considering linking up with authorities of the Ghana Urban Water Company to supply water for the secondary Takoradi metropolis in the near future. Again, the old railway station at Sekendi will also be converted into an island container depot to ease congestion at the port. Construction works have started on the extension of the jetty to 1.1 kilometer. About 85,000 cubic meters of boulders out of the 2.2 million cubic meters have already been laid on the seabed since October 28, 2013.
Sank 85 85,000 tons or 85,000 cubic meters of rock into the water that is underneath. And the one that appears on the surface, that one is about 70 meters. So when you go there now and you stand on the old jetty, the old breakwater, you will see that you can see 75 meters from the end of the old breakwater showing upwards. You can see it there. However, what you cannot see is that beyond the 75 meters, there's extra, beyond the 70 meters, there's extra 25 meters in the water that is also gradually coming up.
And that's it for business. I'm Abigail Adumakwinchi. International news is up next.
Join News Business. Showbiz is brought to you by...
The Volta region, like many other regions in the country, has a very colorful culture. This was evident over the weekend when President Mahama paid a 2-day working visit to the region.
Although the Volta region is known predominantly for the Efa language, there are actually two main languages spoken there. Efa spoken in the southern part of the region and Akan spoken in the northern part of the region. So when President Mahama embarked on a 2-day working tour of the region, the indigents did not waste time showcasing the various elements that make up the Efa culture. As is customary with every social occasion, the debates held in his honor started with traditional prayers thanking the gods for traveling mercies. The fast-paced rhythm of the bobobo took center stage when the president hit the regional capital, Ho. In the south, the tempo changed and so did the dance, with bobobo giving way to the war dance Achagbako. But the most memorable dance on the journey for us was the Kokushi, a dance we gathered was performed to invoke the gods. And from his reaction, it's clear the president probably even believes what we've been told about this dance.
And that's it for Showbiz.
Showbiz was brought to you by...
We'll go the quick run through our top stories. Government has announced the removal of controversial taxes on condoms, agricultural inputs and mobile phones with effect from January 2014, and a pay cut for the president and his officials in the 2014 budget. For government, the budget is transformational, but the minority says it's uninspiring. The Black Stars have confirmed their booking for the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, despite a 2-1 loss to Egypt. The Western Naval Command has busted a foreign vessel with substances suspected to be cocaine. And on the occasion of World Toilet Day, the AMA is cautioning landlords it is against the law to deprive their tenants a proper place of convenience. That's it. My name is Israel Live. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com.